So Nalleli Cobo. Nalleli led a coalition to permanently shut down a toxic oil drilling site in her community in March of 2020 at the age of 19. An oil site that caused serious health issues for her and others. Her continued organizing against urban oil extraction has now yielded major policy movement within both the Los Angeles City Council and the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, which voted unanimously to ban new oil exploration and phase out of existing sites. Thank you, Nalleli, for coming. And she's also a recent inductee to the Clean Energy Hall of Fame as a climate champion for the state of California. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean. I feel very honored to be here with these amazing speakers we've been hearing all morning. It's been an incredible honor to just being able to sit here and just taking it all in and listening and learning so much. I think we always have so much more to learn when it comes to the climate crisis and just the part that we all have to play. So I like to start off my presentations by doing a little something interactive. So
Okay.
I do ask that everyone in the chat send in things that they believe belong in a community. Parks, connection, kids, schools, accessible food, yes, libraries, bikes, hugs, clean air, trees, clean water, amazing. Amazing. All right, now I'm going to ask what you think pops up into your head when I mention Los Angeles. So what comes to mind when I say LA? Cars, traffic. Yep, traffic. You guys know that LA traffic, Hollywood, dirty air, concrete. Beautiful answers. You guys are way ahead than my normal answers are like Hollywood, beaches, Kardashians is a big one I get. Disneyland, Los Angeles River, amazing. Yes. Notice how nobody said an oil well. The unfortunate reality is that Los Angeles is the largest urban oil fields in the nation, with approximately 580,000 Angelenos living within a quarter of a mile or less to an active oil and gas well. That's over 500,000 people. And I'm going to be sharing my personal experience growing up 30 feet from an active oil and gas well. So when drilling for oil, there are a lot of chemicals that are harmful chemicals that are harmful to one's health, our safety, and our environment. These chemicals like benzene can cause vomiting, headaches, stomach pain, insomnia, and others like hydrogen sulfide can cause headaches. Stomach pain is a big one. This is my puppy Alfondia who's on my lap and now moving, that are harmful to our health and safety. And when drilling for oil, it smells like rotten eggs. Living 30 feet from an active oil and gas well was called Go Energy. And Go would actually go an extra step and use even more chemicals to mask the smell of rotten eggs. So then my community would smell of guava, cherries, citrus, chocolate was a big one as well. In my personal experience, I started getting really sick. I started getting these headaches, stomach pains. I got body spasms that were so severe I couldn't walk. I had to be carried from one place to another. I developed asthma. That's something I'm always going to have to live with now. My chronic nosebleeds that were so intense, I couldn't sleep in my own bed. I would have to sleep in a chair to prevent choking on my own blood at night. The list goes on, and unfortunately, it wasn't just me or just my family, but it was most of my community. It became a common conversation starter for parents to stop each other in the streets and say, "My son is in the hospital because of asthma. How's your daughter's asthma doing?" Or, "My child is in the ER. Can you help me pick up my other kids from school?" That was the way we greeted each other on the streets. And that's not normal. So what do you do when your community is under attack? You stand up and you fight back. So that's exactly what we did. We started turning ourselves from victims to activists and advocates and started advocating for our basic human right of breathing clean air in our own homes. I am a very proud co-founder of People Not Pozos, which is a grassroots campaign in my community, translates to People Not Wells. And we started advocating for our right to breathe clean air. We started going door to door knocking and letting people know about oil extraction and how we were living next to an active oil well. We started researching and we started learning becoming experts and learning the different forms of oil extraction, like fracking, acidizing, gravel packing, and being able to take that information and share it with others and say, this is acidizing and this is a form of unconventional oil drilling that stimulates X, Y, and Z. And we became those experts and we started organizing town hall meetings. We started going to city hall hearings and sharing our stories. After 4 years of us grassroots mobilizing and community organizing and sharing our story, we were very fortunate to capture the attention after 4 years of the Los Angeles Times. The Los Angeles Times wrote a story about my community, and that article actually captured the attention of former US Senator Barb Boxer. She flew out and had a press conference with my community in front of Alango, where she pleaded them to cease operations. Very proud to say, after that encounter, in November 2013, Alango temporarily closed because of our community's efforts. I also like to make a note that Senator Barbara Boxer had US EPA, Environmental Protection Agency officials come and conduct an on-site investigation in Alango Energy. When they went inside of Alango, within 5 minutes of being inside the well, they had to evacuate because they themselves got sick. The officials conducting the investigation only had to be inside for 5 minutes before feeling the impacts themselves. So you can imagine the day-to-day impacts us frontline communities were facing. It was 24/7, constant exposure. Alango operates behind these big hidden walls, and it was always up to my imagination what was behind these walls. And one day we were walking home from school, my mom and I were walking home from school, and the doors were open. We looked at each other, no words, we didn't have to say anything, and we ran inside. And we ran inside of Alango, and we were greeted by a very friendly worker. He asked us what we were doing inside, and this is when my mom and I made our acting debut, and we were like, oh, my daughter has always asked me what was behind these walls, and the walls were open today, and we figured we could come in and ask. And he actually gave us an entire tour of the facility, started taking us underground where Alango had 21 underground oil wells. And he started opening these valves. And when he did that, the smell was rotten eggs instantly, and an overpowering smell. And I instantly had a headache. I was nauseous. I got dizzy. I felt really sick. And I remember asking him, oh, does the smell bother you? And he responded, I can't smell it anymore. And as much as we're advocating for the surrounding community for our right to breathe clean air, we are also advocating for the workers. The workers are the ones who, just as much as the frontline communities, are on the front lines. The worker also told me that every 10 to 15 minutes, he has to open the valves to release pressure to prevent an explosion. Then, at the age of 10, I realized that we were living on a bomb. I realized that every 10 to 15 minutes, this man was sacrificing his life. And I thought if he overslept and took a nap and overslept, or if he was late to work because of our LA traffic, my community would be gone in a matter of seconds. And it felt like nobody cared. I immediately thought of all the school drills we have. when you're in school, you have the lockdowns, the earthquake drills, the fire drills. I remember even having active shooter drills in school, but there was no plan and there was no oh my goodness, there was no emergency evacuation plan in place for my community. The worker also wore no protective gear. I remember seeing signs on the wall in the well that had little cartoon characters with the hazmat suits and the goggles and the helmets, and the worker had none of that. Again, we also want to protect the workers because they are the ones working with no protective gear, with no helmets, with no protective eye gear, and they deserve better. I also remember the oil well worker gave me a jar of Alenco oil and water so I could take it to my school the next day for show and tell and show my friends that no matter how hard you mix oil and water, they never mix. We soon realized we were not the only community being affected by oil extraction, by urban oil drilling. Like I mentioned earlier, there are over 500,000 Angelenos. So Stand LA was born, Stand Together Against Neighborhood Drilling Los Angeles, which is a coalition that fights tirelessly to phase out all oil and gas wells in our city of Los Angeles with a just transition. I'm very proud to say that after years of tireless advocating and activism in 2022, this past year, we had historic landmark change. I get so excited talking about it because we made historical change. The Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors and the Los Angeles City Council both voted unanimously to phase out all oil and gas wells in our city with a just transition. And I'm very proud to say that by the end of the next 20 years, Los Angeles will be running on 97% renewable energy. So instead of saying Los Angeles is the largest urban oil fields in the nation, I will get to say Los Angeles was the largest urban oil field. And that little change of words protects so many people. And I always get asked why I fight. And I fight because I believe everyone has a right to breathe clean air despite their age, their gender, their ethnicity, their socioeconomic status, or zip code. I believe clean air is a basic human right. I also fight so no child has my childhood. At the age of 9, when I was making these decisions, I had my childhood robbed me. From not being able to open the windows in my home, from not being able to play outside, to making these decisions, going door to door knocking or playing with my Barbies that I had inherited from my older sisters. It robbed me of my childhood, but I'm also very proud to be able to advocate for my community. I'm very proud to be a voice for my community and be able to share my lived experiences and what my community was dealing with and what we did to overcome it. This Los Angeles historical change was made possible because of frontline communities and their tireless, persistent advocating, our tireless storytelling, our power, and knowing our worth. 2020 was a difficult year for everyone. The world came to a halt. And in January 15th of 2020, I heard the words nobody wants to hear. You have cancer. I was diagnosed with stage 2 cancer at the beginning of the pandemic, 1 month after I turned 19 years old. So at the age of 19, I was forced to choose between my reproductive system or my life. And I'm here. After 3 surgeries, 8 minor procedures, 6 weeks of radiation, 3 rounds of chemo and fighting off 2 infections, I heard the words, "You are cancer-free." The hardest thing about my cancer treatment was being diagnosed in the pandemic, which meant I had to do all of my treatments alone. Typically, during chemotherapy, you have a chemo buddy and you're accompanied for your 8-hour chemo day. I had to be alone. I would FaceTime relatives or just simply watch a movie or TikTok my 8 hours away. And specifically, during one of my treatments, I got really sick and I had to be hospitalized for a week and separated from my entire family. The only way I could talk to them and see them was through the screen of FaceTime. My nephews made me this sign, which says, "Love you." And they stood on the roof of the neighboring building. And that was how we saw each other. Here's actually a picture of my mom visiting me during a treatment day. She's a little tiny person in the photo, but it was the sense that my family was still there for me when they couldn't be there for me. And I share this story of my cancer because I was also misdiagnosed for 5 years. So for 5 years, I had been going to the doctor and advocating for myself and asking for tests. And I was always told the odds of you having something are 1 in a million. My medical case turned out to be 1 in a billion. But I share this because I wish I would have pushed further for myself. And I know that by me sharing my misdiagnosis story, it can inspire somebody else to get checked sooner. It can inspire someone else to push for themselves to get a proper exam at a doctor's appointment. And I believe storytelling is a compelling form of activism that unfortunately goes unnoticed at times. And I want to be as open as I can about my lived experiences. I am a very proud activist since the age of 9. And for the past 12 years, I have been in this space learning how to use my voice to create positive change, learning how to represent my community on a better scale, and share what my community has done and what we have been able to accomplish because of our power, because we, the people, hold the power. We have the ability to advocate for change. We have the ability to vote people in, and we have the ability to vote them out. It is our job to remind our elected officials that they work for us. It is our job to remind ourselves of the power that our voices have and our stories have. Every story deserves to be heard. Every story and voice is powerful, regardless of your age or your ethnicity or your language. Your story deserves to be heard. I'm very honored to have been able to share my story with you all today. And I thank you so much for this time.
Thank you, Nalleli. Woo. Usually I'd give a more like, yay kind of thing, but I think I need to pull that one down for the moment that we're in. But if you can see, there's just eruptions of hearts of sympathy and compassion for you. Thank you for sharing your story. I was going to read some things off because while you're talking, you can be reading like Kathy pouring hearts and thanking you, and Leslie saying, "Nail, you are a remarkable human. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your awesome work." And John saying, "You are amazing." And Anne Zamborgana, well, Anne saying, "Many hearts." And Tristan, she says, "is tireless and takes everything. Our hearts are with you," with like butterfly, sunflower, sun. "We can never thank you enough for everything you do." And Louis says, "Everyone needs to hear your story, Nalleli." And Louis is an author, a children's author who wrote a really beautiful book about getting rid of fossil fuel buses and electric dragon buses. So I know that he loves your story. Becky says you deserve a presidential medal, and Becky is a superhero herself, so she knows what she's talking about. And Carl Aldinger says, "So sorry all this has happened to you, Nalleli. Your fight is protecting your community now and into the future. Thank you." And Amelie says, thank you for sharing your story, Nalleli. You're amazing. Sending love and good energy your way. And Kat notes that her sister also got misdiagnosed. Her sympathies go out to you. And she's hoping to be a librarian at a medical library. You can see how that can change your life. And Pam says, thank you for sharing your story. I recently lost my wife to cancer, a late stage diagnosis that we weren't able to beat. We absolutely have to take our health and that of our loved ones and our communities seriously and advocate for ourselves and each other. And Becky, once again, thanks you. Ruthie thanks you for your inspiring story and activism. And Ted says, you're just stunning and powerful. And so keep on being you. And Jenna wants to thank you for your incredible story and for sharing all of your work. And Sinead, there's so many, I don't know, it's just because people deeply appreciate this. So what do you think is your next target, your next goal? You amazing, powerful person who has gotten, and thank you for staying with us. What's up next?
So Alenco actually operates on land that is leased to them by the Archdiocese of Los Angeles.
Oh,
Yes, and just because it's on land by the Archdiocese does not make them holy emissions. As someone that has gone to Catholic schooling her entire life, first grade through senior year of high school, because of everything that they have taught us about believing in God's creation, loving our neighbors, I feel like it is my job to call them out on being hypocrites. I've sent a video to the Pope. I've sent a video with the Pope with my community as well. I've also given him a handwritten letter that has been delivered to him in his hands. Yet to have a response. So if anybody watching has an in with the Pope, I would love to connect. But that is definitely a goal, is to talk more about the Archdiocese leasing these lands. The next is to get President Biden to declare a national climate emergency. I'm hopefully starting my own nonprofit this year, which would be really exciting. Yeah.
Can I ask, so you passed a successful law. How quickly will the oil wells get phased out? I mean,
It's still a long process. Everything is really complicated with the policies and such, but hopefully we can start phasing them out as soon as possible. But it's also those technicalities and those policy things that still overwhelm me and kind of confuse me, if I'm being honest.
yeah. So if I understand correctly, there's no more new wells that will be dug.
Correct.
And the policies of phasing out the existing ones, if you're the expert or one of them and you're finding it technically confusing, I can see how smart you are. What is the help that you need to shut down these? Like, this is 100 and something people here who are all for real activists, just like you, who are very affected by your story. How could we help you?
I think definitely just following the story of Longstand or on socials, my social too, or definitely that, and then maintaining the pressure on our elected officials to actually phase them out, because we all know our elected officials can talk the talk and they don't always match the walk. So definitely, specifically with our new mayor in office, having a strong pressure that this is one of the first things that should be addressed, and a big priority, because so many people are affected day to day. And whether it's a 20-year phase out, those 20 years is still 20 years that people are affected.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of working with lawyers and policy people. I forget the proper name for policy experts all the time, so they can navigate the system better.
Becky helped you out. Wonks. We're called wonks, she says. Ted says nerds. You can choose. Nerds, wonks. So we follow you on social media to stay abreast of the things that you are organizing that we can participate with. We continue to pressure the new mayor, Mayor Lee. Is that her name? What's the name of our new mayor? Bass, Mayor Bass.
Bass, yes.
Yes, thank you. Lee is the one who's running for Senate also. So Karen Bass. Do you have any way to get to her? All right, because some of these people might have a way to get to her.
If I'm being honest, my first internship was actually with Miss Bass.
Oh,
She was my first internship when she was still in Congress. So I think I have her
got
her
her phone number.
email somewhere. Yeah. Do a deep dive.
Excellent. Well, in sort of like, there's been a gazillion people who've been saying warm, fuzzy things, but I guess, Jenny Lowe is saying, Jenny Lowe is such a sweetie, by the way, if you get to meet her. She says, hope you snatch times for rest and fully enjoy being in your 20s too.
Yes, my best friends are holding me to it this year. They're like, we didn't see you last year. So they're like booking me. We have a best friend dinner on Sunday that they're making me go to.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
Yes.
Good, I'm glad you got some good friends down there. Are there any other calls to action before we transition to the next speaker? But I want to make sure, like, what else can we do to help you?
I think definitely being educated is one of the first things, and us already being in these calls and learning so much is already, I think we're already past the first step, which is beyond, because we're already I think the first step for everything is education and learning more. And I mean, there's 130 of us right here gathered, and I think we're already on step one. We're already educating ourselves and trying to get our hands more dirty, and yeah, just
Well,
applying
then,
pressure.
when you start your nonprofit, and you have a People's Not Pozos, but is that like a subsidiary of another nonprofit, like your umbrella?
That's the grassroots campaign in our community, yes.
Okay, but it doesn't have a 501c3 nonprofit status.
No.
Okay, so, and are you creating an organization called People Not Pozos as what is?
I'd probably do something else, probably focused on around environmental storytelling.
Okay, and so like Ted, who's a successful engineer, just left his partnership to go off and be more of an activist as an engineer. But Ted says, "How can we fund your work?" And he means it. And so,
Um, we can definitely connect, Ted.
well, Nalleli, would you put your email address in the
Yeah,
chat?
that's exactly what I was typing right now.
Perfect.
Yeah. Let's see.
I hope that we're on the other side of the state from you, right? But it is just an airplane flight from LAX. About an hour later, you're here. And should you ever want to go take a hike in the redwoods, or have come to our wonderful organic farmers market, or go walk on a quiet beach, just come on up, and I'll more than happily host you and be your friend, put you up. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'll definitely take you up on that. Thank you so
Okay.
much, everyone.
Thank you, Nalleli. Woo! All right, that was keynote number 2, and you can see why.